Welcome to the Swing Trading with Cycles channel. It is October 21st, so it's Friday night. We have a full weekly candle. We're going to look at uranium today. We're going to start with CCJ as usual. So this daily chart has been consolidating below this gap, and we now have a nice little uptrend, right? So I'll draw that out to make sure that we are clear. So we have a low here. We came up. We made a little low. That's a higher low. And now we've come up. So maybe we do something like this, then like that, right? And this is in the context of the broader market having most likely made an ICL, right? We have a nice little swing low in place for SPX and most of the other indices, I believe, as well. But this is a nice little uptrend. And notice it stopped almost exactly at that. And again, not level, but zone, right? It stopped right in that gap zone at the underside, closed above the 10-period moving average. So that's bullish. Now, it depends. There are a few different ways to look at this, right? You could look at this as this was your daily cycle low on day 23, and now this is a new cycle that bottomed on day 15. I guess you could also theoretically argue that 23 plus 15, that this is your daily cycle low at day 38, right? Either way, whether this is a 15-day cycle or this whole thing is a 38-day cycle, that would make this day 1, 2, 3, 4, day 5, as opposed to day 19 off of this day 15 sort of swing low. Because this implies that this is going to make a new low. At this point, there really isn't an edge in terms of telling one way or another. I'd say, actually, if you really wanted to lean, it's higher, again, because the broader market is probably moving higher. And this is a nice little uptrend that's just started. Doesn't mean we're going to go back to all-time highs by any means, or even to test these local highs. But at least that the path of least resistance is higher. At least maybe to the upper side of this gap, right? And so on the weekly chart, that's where the levels become very clear. This whole thing has been a big, fat inside week, right? Because of this huge red candle on the weekly last week. So to get outside of this range, we'd have to get all the way up to 27, which actually could be good news, right? It could suggest that we get a rally all the way up there and maybe a massive rejection. Maybe not a massive rejection and just a consolidation, but it tells you could have a magnet. That's like over $4 from up here. Could be really interesting. That said, the flip side of that, that's a really big hill to sort of get over, right? Especially after this big bearish candle, or I should say this small bearish candle, which that in and of itself is pretty bearish. Like, this is a false breakout, right? And this is your continuation off of that, like your bearish continuation. So I don't know. It's likely a tall order to get on the other side of this. Next week we'll open week 17. And if you think about the monthly, we're actually still decently below the low from last month. And we're definitely very red. So now you have to start thinking about what does the November candle start to look like. We have 6 trading days left in October. If we continue to rally, we're going to build more and more of a lower wick. And either way, right now, because of the amount of lower wick we have, obviously, assuming we don't just completely collapse, we would expect November to open as an inside month. And that's important. We're going to see some of those probably. Like the dollar is probably going to open as an inside month. Gold might. And so you get a sense of, it could be a really interesting situation where maybe you break that range in late November. And obviously we have the Fed meeting in the early part of November, so that could be a big catalyst. But it sets up for basically a big move in either direction. And obviously you have to kind of take your pick as to what direction you think is most likely, right? And we'll have to see how that unfolds kind of in real time. And as we look at just a smattering of other U names, let's look at Denison. So, wow, Denison actually made a new high on the weekly chart. That's good to know. This has all the look of a bear flag. My God, that looks pretty ominous. UUU Energy Fuels, nice little. So this looks a lot less like a bear flag. This is actually a little uptrend, right? So same kind of idea. Up, a low, but that's a higher low. Now we go up. Do we get something like that and like that, right? That's what we'd be looking for, right? And we're setting up the possibility for that. This again, this is UUU Energy Fuels. Wow, if we look at the monthly, so monthly is solidly an inside month, but look how bullish that looks. And again, thinking about 6 days left to trade, what does that set us up for? It sets us up for November breaking the range. So if October is an inside month, November maybe breaking it up to the upside. Obviously, it could also collapse to the downside. That's important to kind of understand, to be aware of, and just manage that risk. If we look at URA, so URA just going green on the monthly chart and actually has a potential for a little false breakdown. False breakdown, right? Like it broke down below the low and now it's coming back to the other side of the range. Now this is important, right? This is the URA ETF. This is the monthly candle, and you can or monthly candles, I should say, and you can see we are like really flirting with the idea of making a new monthly high. And if we did that, that would make this month a swing low. That's how that works, right? That would become a swing low once we go above. If we go above that high, we'd have to hold it there. Obviously, we could get some kind of rejection, but that's going to be that's interesting to watch. That again, I'd say the broader picture for these is and that's on your weekly level. I'd say, sorry, I didn't mean monthly. Apologies. Bigger picture though. We're moving into a 3-year cycle low, right? And look at what the monthly looks like on this one. Again, very doji-like, but has gone green. It's trying to consolidate kind of in this area. What does URNM look like? So very similar, little green hammer candle. Let's just look at a few others really quickly. Maybe the Govix. So notice, like this is actually a good example. That's a big contrast. Notice how this is a solidly red monthly candle making new lows, and those other candles for the other names like DNN, that's green, UUU, that's green, URA is green, URNM is green. So that gives you some kind of relative strength to stay away from. Appia, rare earths, and uranium core. It's an inside month, but solidly red. But look at this, lower high, lower high. What is this? It's another lower high, just like this one. So it's heading for lower lows. You expect a move below, call it the $21 area. And what are we at now? Yikes, 31. So that's a lot of downside potential. And finally, let's look at Canalaska. Oof, that's not looking good. We're making a new low on the monthly chart. These are important things to pay attention to. This is Paladin Energy. So Paladin is actually green on the monthly chart. Still inside, but a lot less concerning than some of these other names. Mega Uranium trying to go green actually from red. It seems to have held that level. That's interesting. Kind of bounced off of that. Lightbridge Energy, yeesh, that doesn't look great. I mean, look at this thing. Yikes. Looks like it has a dome on top of it without you actually even doing it. So that's a smattering of different uranium names. As I said, that 3-year cycle low is pulling just about everything down. There's no reason to think uranium is going to be spared like some kind of sacred thing. No, there's no reason to think that. But at the same time, not every name is going to be as impacted as every other name. So this is a stock picker's market at this time, to be sure.